Okay. I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll have a pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll have a roll call.
Yep. Supervisor Bossard.
Here.
Clerk Wright, here. Treasurer Kowalski.
Here.
Trustee Woods.
Here.
Trustee Markounis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And moved to second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same. All right. Move on to reports. Permits issued. We can do that. Is the fire chief here? See him. Treasurer's report.
Yeah, so in the packet, you have the report. I did want to mention that Gretchen Esser is my deputy treasurer as of actually March 31st. She took the oath. I had some questions from a board member, and so I'll just briefly kind of explain. So in the treasurer's report, under deposit balances, those are liquid funds under the general account heading. And then certificates of deposit are, I think, self-explanatory. And then I keep a grand total of both of those. And then you can kind of see the history if you look down. There's a year of history in our total assets. The only other thing I'll mention is I have 2 CDs coming due actually today. And so I'm going to be moving those funds from Southern Michigan Bank and Trust and co-locating them at Marshall Community Credit Union at a 4.77% 10-month CD.
Okay, anything more? Okay, Sheriff's Enhanced Patrol Activity.
We had 21 hours last month, 24 traffic stops, 13 citations. Let's see, we got a fugitive warrant out of Indiana. I took one fraud. I ended up doing a search warrant for the credit card information from the vendor just to see if we could get it from around here somewhere. Obviously, if it's in Louisiana or whatever, we won't be able to follow up with it, but that should be coming back pretty soon. Had a private property tow, and we got some pretty big speeds out on Michigan Avenue and also Verona this month. I personally have had like 8 or 9 incidents with some of the Chinese nationals that have come to work at the site, not really understanding our traffic laws and whatever. And so month before last, I was able to get the biggest importer, if you will, to require them to have a class or to bus them back and forth in the evenings. And so that took care of most of it. And then we had a couple more incidents, and I was able to get the guy who's in charge and hires those companies to require it of all the other ones. So we've had no incidents since then, which is a big victory for me. And I also met with the area coordinator for MDOT. He's like the engineer that oversees how the signs and stuff are put out. And so we went over like 4 areas that we've been having some problems in the new sections of our road here. And I believe that they are going to make some changes. However, he said the state of Michigan moves fairly slowly, so you won't see it super quick, so. Does anybody have any questions or? Any complaints called into to the township office?
Just,
Well, I had asked you earlier about, my name's Bowles, 784 Kalamazoo, North Kalamazoo. At corner of F and North Kalamazoo, there's a four-way stop. Nobody stops. I'm not talking like we talked earlier, like a California roll. I'm talking 80 and straight through. It's just, or 50 and straight through.
Yep. Okay, I'll keep an eye on it, and also I'll put it out to the rest of the road patrol for, to keep an eye on it when they go through
Buy
that.
a pizza.
Yeah. Hit me with food, so, yeah. Thank you.
Did you have
That's
something?
right.
All right. Planning Commission.
Okay, last month at the Planning Commission, we now have our updated zoning maps printed and posted here in the front office. I think Dan Sloan, our tax assessor, also has one. So we've made it that far with new updated zoning maps.
They're signed too.
And there are signed. The master plan review is still ongoing. There was no JPC meeting this past month. For the second month in a row, there were just nothing to put on the agenda at that time. Planning Commission sent a reply to Next Year Solar on the tree plantings per the site plan. It's been an ongoing thing, and they have not replied back to us, to my knowledge, on our proposal back to them for their initial proposal back to us. So, Dave Brown's special land use suspension is awaiting a pretrial conference court date. Was the last update that we have. And we also like to welcome Shelley Briggs as our dedicated full-time zoning administrator. That's all I have.
All right, well, we're gonna move you right into the road department.
Road department.
Nick, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, I know there was correspondence with the attorney on the 425 property, generally called State Farm. So what's the plan? What does the planning commission's, what is their action, if any?
I guess the best state that we are in is still to be discussed and determined. You know, I think it represents what the zoning administrator and this is Johanna and Dwayne come up with. I think we even talked about this a little bit at the last monthly meeting. It's debatable between us and how the city wants to represent it at the time. And just depending upon further discussions, we can do a modification at that time. So
Discussions with,
just as on how to identify that section up there.
okay.
Anything else? All right, we'll move on to the road department.
Okay, the last contact I had with the road department was prior to our special meeting last week. They asked the question, put forth a proposal about a roundabout here at 15 Mile Road in Verona. I responded back to them that there was no way that we could make a decision upon that until we had our meeting. I would bring it up at the meeting on the 13th. And we couldn't put it on the agenda until this regular meeting because the meeting on the 13th was a special meeting. And I did not receive a reply back from the road department one way or another at that point. I know that they contacted you and talked with you, but that is the last that I've heard or seen on that. The construction for what is now 15 Mile Road out here in front of the building, everybody saw as you were coming in. That is, what, a 3-week project?
It's April, May 15th?
Yeah, May 15th or so, something like that. And they started bright and early this morning. They were going after it when I came in around noon, 1 o'clock. And I think, what was it? 8-inch gravel base, 5-inch.
So 8 inches of gravel,
Eight gravel.
6 inches of asphalt.
6 asphalt, okay. And they're redoing the curbs at the intersections, all 4 up here at the corner and here. So about mid-May is what their estimated completion time is on that. And we did have a meeting with the MDOT supervisor, Greg Finola, and he came out, and Glenn and I attended that meeting, and he explained to us the process and the procedure and the timelines and everything like that, so. And that's all I have.
Have you heard anything from the county on whether this section will be a primary road? It's been a local road, right? And so now the traffic's gonna increase
As I remember, right?
exponentially. And I think we've asked several times, but we don't know that I've ever seen an answer.
I thought they did answer us and it was gonna be, a primary, but, I mean, that's what I remember, but I'm not gonna say that's for certain, but.
I will double check with them. I'm pretty, it has to be.
Well, it seemed like it, but
Well, has to be since
A lot
it's
of-
right off,
I mean,
right off at New Michigan Avenue.
That
So,
and 15 Mile Road's a primary. So.
and 15's primary, but I'll get with them and see the exact time that they redesignated Old Michigan and designated this section as primary also.
All right. PA 425 Subcommittee, Wright and Kowalski.
Do you have anything, Glenn?
well, basically, Rob thought, he had some family issues and, but he has drafted, I'll call it a revised, agreement, that, Wayne and I haven't read it yet. But the idea would be if it makes sense, if there are any suggestions that would be the subject of our next meeting with the city, which could be as early as this week.
Somebody's not happy with that timeline, so.
All right. Budget report.
Yep, the budget report is, as you can see as of what we have right now, as calculations of 3/31. Right now, we're in the process of reconciliation for the last fiscal year, so there's a lot to get reconciled to make sure that we have everything ready for our audit, which comes up, which we'll be scheduling shortly. And again, I just want to do a shout out to Jeff for helping us on that. We're still in the process of going through it. But yeah, this is as presented.
We've been in this position for 3 weeks. So
Yeah,
I think-
almost 3 weeks, not quite 3
Right.
weeks, yeah.
So I think that you're given grace. So.
Yep.
Okay, communications, recommendation on Ronan 15 Mile Road roundabout. So I guess we'll put that on file. And at this point, we'll open it up for public comment on listed agenda items.
Can I just make a comment about something that's not listed agenda?
Well, that's basically for later in the
Later
meeting.
on.
What?
For later on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good enough.
All right. Well, seeing nobody wants to make a comment, we'll move on to discussion update items. Tax account overdraft.
So I put this on the agenda and based off of the recommendation of the township attorney and our CPA. So we have essentially two different main accounts. We have our tax account and we have our general fund account. And essentially, as we collect taxes, all of those taxes go into the tax account, which then from there, the treasurer submits the list of essentially checks that need to be written for different municipalities like the library or like the community college and things like that. So we have different, that receive based off of our tax revenue. They receive certain checks that go out. The treasurer then signs them, and then those go out. So we became aware that within the tax account in March that there was a moment where, and I provide it as a separate thing so that you can see the account essentially, where we have on the, so it's hard to read in the green on the top, but basically we have the balance on the left-hand side, and then we have the amount. And some of these are people, like we can see some of these things coming in are essentially like people paying their taxes late. And so we get still some of those tax revenues in March because people are paying their late taxes. But then also we see the money in negative on the in that middle column is when those checks are being cashed basically by those different municipalities. So with that, you'll notice on the balance side, it shows the balance of those funds. So there was a certain point starting on 3/10, March 10th, where we did not have enough money in those accounts to pay to essentially pay the checks that were coming out of those accounts. And so it was one of those things that and with that, there were some fees that were initially being charged to the account for overdrafting those accounts as well. Now, it shows that Treasurer Kowalski noticed that and was able to transfer some funds back into the account so that it brought it back on the second page. You can see, so you'll see the negative sign on the other side. You can see the start. He was also able to, with the bank, get those reimbursements for the overdraft fees on all of those checks as well. But there was just a couple questions that we had because, that money should be in the account to be able to pay for those. And I appreciate everything Mr. Kowalski has done, Treasurer Kowalski has done for the township and adding value and investing the funds. But it also, we need to make sure that we are making sure that there's always enough money to pay the checks that we are writing. And so that's just kind of the thing that this will be flagged by our audit. And so the thing is, based off of the CPA and the recommendation from the township lawyer, they said, one, we need to present this to the residents about what happened within this account, and then understand what we need to do within our processes to make sure that we don't have this happen again, in the sense of like money, having our accounts go negative, essentially. And so attached with this as well is what the current resolution is for investments and depository designations. And so it's one of those things that we need to decide as a board, maybe like what are some safeguards or some things that we can put in place, some action, so that when we go to the audit, we can say, these are the safeguards that we have as a township put in place to make sure that we don't overdraft again. So that is essentially what the recommendation is. We could wait until the audit, but at that point, there would be a sanction put on not just Treasurer Kowalski on this matter, but it would be an entire board matter for not disclosing this to the public and making them aware of what happened to these accounts. So that is essentially what it is. I would, love for Mr. Kowalski, because obviously he was able to correct the matter and was able to get those funds and to do it. But if, we could have some explanation about where that money went, and then also what funds were used to, just make sure, because we can't mix the tax account with the general funds as well. So we just want to make sure, like that we have a full understanding of what took place in that, with what that is. So that's literally what this is. It's just to put a public forum, just to say, hey, this happened. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen again, so that when we go to a tax audit, we have already a plan in place to make sure it doesn't happen in the future. So, yeah.
So first of all, the resolution that was presented is incomplete. On June 19th, 25, I brought to the board that we would add Consumers Credit Union, Sturgis Bank, and Michigan Class to our investment institutions. So I think the past clerk chose to just bury that in the meeting minutes, but this resolution should be updated.
Yep.
So, I guess my reaction to the attack letter that I got on the 17th, I think it was, basically it's incorrect. The clerk does not have a responsibility to maintain the township's financial accounts. That's the treasurer's role. But the clerk does need to keep accurate records, which is the ledger. So I just want to make sure there's three major components financially. The board alone approves all bills to be paid, which then authorizes the clerk to initiate those payments, and then all payments, not just checks, but all payments have to be approved by the treasurer. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I think the clerk was confused in his role. Yes, there was a deficiency in the tax account at Southern Michigan Bank and Trust for 2 to 3 days while the money was being transferred from Michigan Class. So we have, as you see in the treasurer's report, we don't just have two accounts. We have two series of accounts. One would be the general fund, which we have several banking institutions involved in. And then there's the tax monies. I have two accounts for the tax, one at Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, which is our primary bank, and the other is at Michigan Class. So there's no crossing of funds. Tax accounts are tax accounts. And I am responsible for those receipts and those all those payments out to the taxing authorities. So even though we had over $1 million at Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, I couldn't transfer those funds because that'd be commingling funds. So what I did when I realized that there was in fact an overdraft, I called the bank, no checks were returned for insufficient funds, no penalties were paid by Marshall Township. There was no negative financial impact on Marshall Township. Now, what the auditors will say about that, I don't know. You've had, instead of talking to me, you wrote your nastygram. I could have been in on those conversations, but you chose to send a nastygram. So this is my response. What you didn't mention was that we earned $3,299.81 by the money being in Michigan class at 2 different periods of time, which is a financial gain for the township, which is my goal. So basically that's resulted in over $120,000 in increased revenue and interest. In fact, I just talked about the movement of funds to the Marshall Community Credit Union, where I've negotiated a 4.77% rate on a CD. So again, another thing that seems to be confused is the clerk retains all records. So all deposits, all withdrawals, all transactions, and all bank account statements I give to the clerk. And it's your role to record those in the ledger, and it's also your responsibility once a month to reconcile, which then we can both understand whether the ledger is accurate to what we have in the bank account. So again, it's a check and balance to make sure there's no fraud or embezzlement. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's my explanation. You're right. We should have had the funds. The funds should have been in the account when the checks were being cashed. The transfer was not made soon enough, which is something that we haven't in the past done any transfers between institutions for tax monies. So it's as simple as that. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but.
So did you make anybody aware when this happened, or did we just stumble upon this? Is my question. Like whenever you found out that it was going into the negatives and you had to do the transfer.
Well, I had already made the transfer, but.
But like after, when you found out you were getting all
yeah,
or
called the bank.
Yes, but you didn't tell anybody on the board. You just, that's all I'm asking for clarification.
So there's one time a month that we reconcile against bank accounts, once a month. So that would have been the time when we could have had any kind of dialogue, but the issue had been fixed. So I guess I didn't see any reason to have any hallway conversations about it, because I knew at the reconciliation, it would become obvious and everything balanced. Well, I haven't seen the reconciliation yet. It's due by the end of the month. But again, I knew there wasn't any negative impact financially because no checks were returned for insufficient funds. The bank worked with me and there was no cost and no financial impact to the township.
I think, I guess that, as Christina, just We had a board meeting after this and last month, and maybe we should have just been told. I mean, Wayne went through the things that we could be sanctioned by the audit and everything, and these things happen, and it's a mistake, and nobody's, I don't think his email was accusing or anything. It was just, I felt it was straightforward. There wasn't anything nasty in it. So I'm gonna stick up for him on that. And it's just something that we probably should have been made aware of, so.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I think Wayne has my cell phone number. We see each other periodically. We could have talked about this. I'm not arguing anything. I don't know. I looked at the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, and it didn't seem like there's anything relevant in there to this particular case. I wasn't part of the conversation with the accounting firm, which I think would have been helpful, because we could have explained it rather than, throwing something over the wall. I mean, we're a small township. If we can't talk to each other and understand what's going on, then I think we've got a breakdown. So I don't see, to be honest with you, I don't see any controls that I can think of. I mean, basically, it's my responsibility to make sure that the money is available, which again, I will emphasize that that's part of my role. I have to approve all payments that go out the door, whether they're electronic or by check or by withdrawal. I would argue against withdrawals, payments, and that's not taking place, but that's a separate issue. But in my perspective, something like this coming out of the blue, with obviously conversations with our lawyer and our CPA, without me involved, seemed underhanded to me as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, I talked to 3 different entities on this, and all 3 of them said it needed to become on the agenda for this board meeting. So that was literally what that said. They didn't say I had to notify the board about what that item was. I did that as a courtesy to let you know that this was going to be brought up so that you had the stuff to be able to be prepared so that you could talk about these things. I would just say that in terms of like what's going to be expected is that our current policy, obviously you're right that it's missing that the June 19, 2025 resolution, but this was like the basis of that. So that's an addendum to this essentially to add those other institutions. But they're going to be expecting something within this to be possibly changed to be able to show good faith that this won't happen again. It's essentially all it is. Like I said,
I haven't had that conversation with them, so I don't know what they're asking.
Yeah, so so that the township residents understand, our auditors, the company that does our audit, has 2 branches within that company. One branch does the audit, but we also use them as our CPA. So they can't commingle and say exactly what the auditors are going to do, but they can say, hey, this is the general feels of what should kind of take place because of that. And so that's essentially like when myself and my deputy figured this out, we were like, we just didn't know. We didn't understand the issues. And so we went to, we were always told as a clerk, you go to the CPA if you have questions about things, because we're still learning those things. This is from the clerk's standpoint, looking at this, we're like, does this make sense? That close to $1 million went negative within the account. So, so we were trying to make sense of what that was. And so that was the way we were told to handle it. And so that's the direction that we chose to do. We've, in terms of like, can we have conversations one-on-one I think that would be nice, but every single time we have emailed you since we've become clerk on different things, like for example, with the bank account, getting our names on those bank accounts and those things, we went to the county clerk, we went to different individuals to understand it. And every single time, you don't take their authority as what is the reality within other townships. So like when I went to County Clerk Hinckley on that, you said, well, I really don't care what her opinion is on the matter. So every single time we have this, you just reject every single thing. So I just wasn't going to go in a back and forth with you on this because it's not a back and forth on every single email. And so at this point, it's just, nope, we'll bring it before the board. We can have the discussion out in the open. I'd like it to be a good faith discussion on those things. But I'm not going back and forth on emails of, well, I just don't think that's the right way, or this is the thing.
Well, you're misconstruing, now you're starting to attack me, and so I'll defend myself.
Okay.
You're incorrect. The clerk does not need to be on the bank account. We clarified that with the bank. I don't really care what other townships do. I have talked with several townships, and that's not a requirement. In fact, it's actually a potential for fraud or embezzlement when there's more than the treasurer on the account. The only issue, and again, we resolved this, so you can talk about emails all you want. We sat in a room and you interrupted several times when we were trying to get to the bottom of it. But at the end of the day, even the check signing is not required because it's an internal check. Your signature does not cash the check. Your signature is a warrant that's telling me that the board has approved that bill. My signature is the only signature that makes that a check. So if you want to talk about, you maybe just don't understand things, and if you get frustrated with that, I'm happy to talk about it. But just because you don't understand things, don't blame it on me.
I'm not misunderstanding, and I'm not going to argue back and forth on this because, like I said, the lawyers weighed in on it. The lawyers weighed in on it. The county clerk weighed in on it. Every single person. So we're not going to hash it out here. We're not doing that. And I agree. Like, there can be some better communication, and I hope that could continue.
And I will contact the CPA, the accounting firm, and I've already contacted our lawyers, but since I wasn't included in those conversations, and if you don't know this already, I'm also part of the audit process.
Yeah.
So you're not going to exclude me from those conversations.
Nope.
I'll make sure that I'm involved in them.
Good. I think that's a great thing. Yes. Yeah. It would have just been better if you had brought that up first, I think.
No, it would have been better if you had, rather than send this note, if you'd asked the questions, because you still have questions. All those questions could be answered with the reconciliation that you do once a month. All of them. And if you don't understand how to reconcile or essentially balance a checkbook, I'm willing to help you. You just have to ask the questions.
The point was that you didn't make anybody aware, and so it threw them off. I think that's the only point here. So going forward, if it ever happens again, maybe just instead of waiting till he's reviewing, since he does have sight of the journal ledger, maybe just say this is what happened, and I don't think this would happen again.
I think
Nobody's
it was actually
attacking.
the previous clerk that was in place at the time.
Well, did you tell him?
Yep.
Okay. Well, maybe you should have let him know too.
Is there any more on that?
The only thing is, maybe I would like to make a recommendation for the lawyers to, so like, I will make a motion to have the lawyers look for a potential amendment to the resolution to put in place to be able to present to the auditors of what we could potentially do to help maybe put some checks and balances on to make sure that there are enough sufficient funds within the township accounts to cover the checks that we sign.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we contact our attorneys to say that again, Mike.
Yeah, to contact the attorneys to draft up language
And safeguards.
to amend the resolution to make sure that there's enough monies in the accounts to cover the checks that we have.
Okay. Is there any discussion from anybody? Nick, you have something to say?
Yeah. First off, there is a set checks and balances already in place. And that means the clerk working with the treasurer and the treasurer working with the clerk with the township monies. And it didn't happen this time in this instance. It was a mistake. I still don't understand how come there was a deficit in the first place. I still haven't connected the dot on how that happened. Everything's corrected. No, I don't have a problem with that. It was caught, it was corrected. I still don't understand why there was a deficit in the first place. Communication's key here, guys. Checks and balances are key. Both you guys are in charge, are responsible for the budget, the funds and the budget and everything like that. It's part of the process.
What can be done though is we can put like restrictions on like in how much we invest, or like, for example, if those tax funds come out every 2 weeks, we could say you can invest, like according to the resolution that's there, it talks about essentially making sure that we have enough liquidity and stuff like that so that it doesn't. So we could require that money be in those accounts, or we restrict how much can be invested based off of what checks need to come out of those accounts. So there are other checks and balances that the board can do. And that's what I think. It's not just that, oh, I get to see it, Glenn gets to kind of do stuff with money. Like there are other ways that the CPA kind of described that we could put some safeguards to say, yes, you can manage the funds, but it needs to be of this excess within the accounts. Could be something that could be done to make sure that doesn't happen again.
So Mick, to answer your question, I created an account, actually created 2 accounts at Michigan Class. Michigan Class, for lack of a better description, I'll call it a co-op. It's about 900 municipalities and counties that have come together under that umbrella to invest monies. So, for example, I think their current rates are like 3.8% roughly. And the reason I did that is because at any given time, we can have $1 million or more dollars sitting in our tax account and earning 0.5%. So when I went to the county treasurer meeting, this came up, and almost every township does this, where basically you take that money, invest it, and then bring it back as needed. So the deficit was because the money came back from Michigan class in insufficient time to cover all the checks were covered, but to not make the account go negative.
On that particular date.
And there is a check and balance, and it's called reconciliation, right? It's a monthly, Albaugh never did it on a monthly basis. He was always behind on it, but it has to be done the month following the closure of a financial month, right? So March's report has to be done in April. Be a perfect time to have a dialogue, because that's when you would see things like this. And then we could have probably both talked to the CPA so that I'm up to speed. And we could have both talked to legal staff. So there is a check and a balance there. The board has the right to restrict where I can put funds. You can say, Glenn, the only place we want you to put it is in Southern Michigan, bank and trusts at, I've negotiated 1.5% now, so we could get it for 1.5%, and all the money could be sitting in there, because that's the way it was when I came into the township. We had $2 million sitting in an account that earned less than 0.5%. My goal has been to try and increase that revenue. And like I said, we've increased it. The revenue increase on interest, because we have a large, we have $4 million, was over $120,000 in new revenue. So that's been the goal. The board has that power. You can say, nope, we just want you to put it all in one bank account, and we don't care about the $120,000. It's within the board's right to restrict where we can invest money. I brought it in June of 25. I brought the 3 new institutions that I became aware of: Sturgis Bank, which is new to the Marshall area, and Consumers Credit Union, which is also new to the area, and Michigan Class, which I became aware of again through the county treasurer's meeting, as a vehicle for very liquid higher interest account, and I've taken advantage of that. And like I said, we earned about $3,300 in additional interest on those tax monies. Because what happens is we collect taxes on a daily basis from let's say July to September, and from December to February. But twice a month, every 15 days, I have to make payments to each of the taxing authorities. So we collect all the money, and then I have to parse it out to, the ambulance service, the library, the KCC, the school systems, both Harper Creek and Marshall schools. Every 15 days we do that, and then we send out checks. This was a big month. We sent out some very large checks, which is very scary. And I didn't transfer that money quick enough. It's simple as that.
Okay. We have a motion,
Yep. So,
and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? All right.
Okay. I'll do a roll call vote. Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah.
Okay. Bossard?
Yes.
Wright? Yes. Kowalski?
Yes.
Woods?
Yes.
Markounis?
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved.
All right. We'll go to number 2 in discussion, the zoning administrator contract.
So really, just a couple, really just comments. I mean, we have the contract now. I don't know, I guess it was in the packet, I don't know, I had it sitting on my desk, but the only thing I don't understand, again, it seems that there's a breakdown in communication. We approved the language changes to a document a week ago. I would have thought those changes would have been made. The offer would have been sent to the applicant. The board would have been copied because it's a board contract. The applicant would have signed it and would have sent it back to the board, and the board would have been, or back to whoever, and the board would have been copied on that. What actually happened is the applicant never got the contract. I finally ended up sending it to her because I was so frustrated that we weren't communicating with the applicant. And it has a starting date of tomorrow, which I don't think she can start tomorrow. So I don't know what you're gonna do with that, but we still have an opportunity if we can get the contract from her, signed. Dave, you're here this evening, you could sign it because ultimately you are the signer. So unless you're gonna be here tomorrow when she arrives.
She's planning on signing it tomorrow. And so there has been communication with her. I've talked to her. And I think Wayne has sent her the
Yeah,
revised.
I mean, I can talk a little bit about, so part of it was, one, typically you send it when you're ready to sign it. Those dates were, if you remember at the last board meeting when we did it, it was, that date was going to change based on her availability to come in and sign it. And so we had to communicate back and forth with Shelley about when her availability was to come in and sign it. And so that's why it took some time to be able to get it and why she hasn't been given. She was also, by the way, this is not a surprise. This document here is not a surprise to her because it literally, she was here at the meeting when we approved it. She was here. She knows exactly which text changes can be made and can't be made because it was at that meeting. We as a public body can't do anything different than what was decided at that meeting lawfully. So there's no difference based off of what happened at that meeting that could be here. The only difference was the date, and that had to be figured out between the two parties. And so that's where that came from.
She told me she's willing to start May 4th.
Yeah, so we'll revise that. We can change that.
That's what I don't understand. So now we're changing the date again, and all you have to do is send it out to somebody, they sign it, they send it back. This isn't rocket science. You can make up a big story, you can make this a big deal. That's the end of my comments. We need to start acting on a more professional manner as far as I'm concerned.
I think it is. I think, like I said, we're going to have her come in and fill out the rest of her paperwork that she has to also fill out and get herself accustomed to the things at the township. So as head of HR, as a clerk, that is the HR body aspect of it. That is under our purview and how we do that. So, thank you.
Okay, now the zoning administrator office furniture, IT services budget.
So this is my item. I'd like to make a motion that we don't have a budget specific to this, but to get some, I guess, a number from the board on what they feel comfortable in terms of, we're bringing a new employee in for 4 days a week. We haven't even talked about her location, but I would suggest it could be the fire chief's old office, which he hasn't used. And he has a beautiful, nice new office in the new building. There's an old wooden desk that half of the drawers don't even have handles on it. There's an old taped together filing cabinet. It's a pretty dingy space, so I would like to propose that we buy her, you know, so it doesn't have to be elaborate, but some new furniture, get rid of the stuff that's been around for 50 years. And also, I think we've identified a computer, but I think it'd behoove us, because of the type of work she does, to get 2 monitors and a decent keyboard and a mouse for her as well. So I don't have a number. What I have done, we are part of we pay $180 a year for what's called a My Deal with the state of Michigan. So I made arrangements. I called Staples. No, actually, I called My Deal first to find out what it was. And then I called Staples, and we're setting up a business account with Staples that'll allow us presumably to save money on office supply furniture, but office supplies, but also in this case, possibly the furniture and if we so choose, you know, the computer monitors and that type of thing. So I don't have a number. I mean, I don't know what people feel comfortable with. I would guess we could do it for less than $3,000. But hey, I haven't bought furniture in a while, so.
I think we ought to talk to Shelley before we order anything, so that we don't get something that she's really not gonna want.
No, she is the one that would pick it out. I'm just talking about the board approving a budget, right? I don't have the authority to spend more than, I think, $1,000, which I've never even seen the resolution, but I don't even know if we have a resolution book, but she could pick it all out for sure. I'm just talking about what the board feels comfortable in terms of maximum spending.
So where would this come from? Out of our,
Budget?
yeah, the budget that come out of our, something to do with the building?
Yeah. Great question. And I will say, that was part of the reason of having her come in and sign tomorrow, was to be able to figure out what her actual needs are. I will say that we do have a computer that we had, that we are willing to part with within the elections department, in terms of a laptop that we've identified that can be used. So that is something to take note, that we do have an extra laptop that could bring down some of the costs in that Greg is going to be willing to set up for her. But I agree. I think I agree with Glenn on this, that, you know, we and Dave, that we should have them, have Shelley kind of identify what her needs are, to kind of describe that, so that we can get a more clear number on what that would be.
So that means you would have to wait till the next board meeting to buy anything.
I mean, some of it, when I'd take a look at, I'd have to look at the actual, what's already in there, because obviously when Jeff made the original budget, in terms of expenditures and stuff like that, planning and zoning, I just have to take a look to see if he had appropriated any amounts, which I could also reach out to Jeff to see if there's what amounts there may have already been considered, because we knew that we were going to be hiring a new zoning administrator. So I'm pretty sure that Jeff would have had some number already in mind. But yeah, I'm gonna, you know, maybe contact and talk to him about that.
We have a very large contingency fund, so.
Yeah.
So I guess you can either second it or not. I'd like to make a motion that the board approve up to $3,000 for office furniture and supplies for Shelley Briggs, our new zoning administrator, that she would help decide on, or would decide on, depending on the budget.
I will second that.
All right.
And if the it comes in over that amount, what then?
Well, we would not spend over that amount unless, so what would have to happen is we would spend up to that amount, and then we'd have to come back to the board to say, hey, there's these other needs, and kind of talk about, and the board would have to decide whether those needs are sufficient to go beyond the 3,000.
I think between Wayne and I, we have, I think there's a resolution floating around somewhere. I think we can spend up to $1,000 without board approval. So, but I would hope it's not going to be more than $3,000.
I'd be surprised if it was over that.
Board members, this is Johanna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am so sorry to interrupt. I've had my hand raised. I just wanted to weigh in real briefly. Number one, the camera is only focused on Glenn. I don't know if you guys can see that in the room or not, so I just wanted to let you know that. And then the other thing, just I had public comment, but I can save that. I just wanted to share that we also have funds available in our planning commission budget that we could use to support this effort.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
Yep.
To have $3,000 to equip the zoning administrator's office. We should do a roll call vote on that.
Yep. So Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
Trustee Woods,
Yes.
Trustee Markounis,
Yes.
Supervisor Bossard.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Okay, status of Fire Station 1 and NextEra escrow accounts.
So this circus of escrow accounts has been going on for months. It started to come to a head. There was a check that came in from the title company that apparently held all the construction funds for Fire Station 1 for MEDA. And so I received a communication, actually, I think Carl received a communication, and he stuck a copy of it with the check. And it started some dialogue about MEDA, or in this case, SME, thinks there are funds available in an escrow. Well, first he wanted that check back because he said, hey, you know, we paid for everything and we paid for it directly when we went over the 3.2 million or whatever, 3 point whatever million it was. So we really would like that money back. So I have no idea. I don't have any, I don't keep the records. The clerk keeps the records. So I have no idea what was spent on the fire station. I have nothing. So I just deposited the check and I put the information with it and gave it to the clerk. On the escrow account side, there seems to be, well, I've seen now at least 3 different reports. And then I saw another report that's from, I think, Carl Bowler, that said there was no money in it. So it ranges from there's a few $1,000s that we owe them to they owe us 13,000. So at the end of the day, we've got to somehow figure this out. And I would argue that we should never again allow a zoning administrator to manage money. They can be part of the process, but really it's the clerk and the treasurer receiving the money and the clerk recording that money under a GL code or some way that we know that we can't touch that money because it's part of this escrow account, and apparently none of that happened.
Yeah. So what I can talk about briefly is what escrow accounts are and why they aren't tracked within the general ledger. So these escrow accounts are not tracked in the general ledger because they're not owned by the township. Essentially, they are opened on behalf of the township, but these accounts are not opened. They are not actually township accounts. Like when we talk about it, like we have a title agency that opened up an escrow account for Fire Station 1. And so essentially what it is there's this chunk of money that this entity has opened up, and then the township says, hey, we are going to have this geological group come out, we need this money. They give us a chunk of money that we request that's opened on behalf of that account, and that becomes a source of revenue in that. And so that's when it gets tracked by the general ledger or gets tracked by the township. So it's hard because the like we have this other pot that's actually not under our statutory duties to be able to, like, we need to keep track of how much is in that pot over there, but the reason why it's been the zoning administrator is because typically they're the ones that are dealing with drawing from that account to do these different surveys and such. And so the question is like, why are we even having these escrow accounts? And these things go back, like we were digging, my deputy and I were digging to figure out where these essentially these escrow accounts came from. And there's actually a resolution that basically says whenever we have one of these big projects, it's required that we have an escrow account to help make sure that the township has a way to pay for the research and the stuff that is associated with that. So that's kind of that. I will agree with Treasurer Kowalski. It is a mess in the sense of like we are digging to understand, both NextEra Solar, like that escrow account, as well as Fire Station 1. And according to some of the things that you can see, I've attached some of the reports on, and again, this was kept, the Paul Anderson one. We looked in the general ledger to see which of these things have been paid. And according to, I highlighted the one saying it said, because it had on his thing said not paid, but when we looked under the general ledger, we saw that, oh no, we actually did pay that VK Engineering that $972. The Tri-Terra billing, I attached to that as well, but we have looked under, so essentially whenever you write a check to a different entity, we have to like type them all into BSNA. And when we typed in, so that's what we did with VK Engineering to say like, hey, have we paid stuff to them? How can we find them to see which things we've paid from them in the past? When we've typed in Tri-Terra billing to find them, we have not found anything. So it says it was not paid. We found this thing here. So the number, the balance on the bottom includes that $10,666. But if you subtract that out of there, it looks like our balance is negative to like $2,000 some dollars. So so far in what I've seen, I would agree that we do not owe SME money. Actually, we probably have some things that they still owe us for based off of that. And that's going off of Paul Anderson's documents, which is the most current documents that we have been able to find up to this point. So I think my next step would be probably I need to talk to Aaron to kind of show him some of these figures to be able to do it. But I know that we're still researching because it is a mess. We found a lot of this information on the server, which any board member can find on the server in terms of that. In terms of checking it against the ledger, that's the only thing I could do. But that was something that I was able to, anybody could have looked up that information by going through Paul Anderson's files. But yeah, so that's what we have found so far. Like I said, that's our current policy in terms of resolutions, and that just kind of gives a quick overview of how escrow accounts work and why it typically hasn't been the clerk that's done it, just because we're not that close to the actual zoning and things that would be on, in that moment, drawing against those accounts.
Makes sense.
So again, it's really not that complex. All the monies, if we were gonna hold them in our bank accounts, all the monies have to come through the treasurer, period. And I would think a clerk would want to record that because we record all deposits and all withdrawals or checks through BSNA and in the ledger. So the only thing that I think took place here is we had some zoning administrator keeping track of things when he had no business really being the one to keep track of it. The clerk should keep track of how much money is in our bank accounts that's designated for an escrow account. There's just no other way around it, period.
And we do. So we, so for example, we have, again, the escrow account itself is not the township's. It's a separate, complete separate account. But when that money does come into the township, so like when the zoning administrator basically says, hey, we need $5,000, which happened in April 2024, that deposit then goes into the revenue fund, which in this case, in April 2024, it went to revenue fund 101-000.0000684.000, which is reimbursements for refunds. Then the checks are paid to the townships. Then we take those checks, and those checks, then we say, oh, we're going to pay VK Civil Engineering, and we do that. And then we issue the check 3-1, in this case, 3-1-679, based off of what VK Engineering actually charged us for, which was $3,743, to account 101-101.000-804.000. And it went under that township account, which said Township Board studies by professionals for environmental reports and site plan reviews. So when that money does get requested from the escrow account, again, the clerk's not keeping track of the escrow account because the escrow account is not the township account. It is not ours. That was opened by a different entity. It only becomes the township's when we draw against that. And that's when we keep track of it from the clerk's perspective.
I still don't understand. You keep talking about another entity. If the money comes into our bank account, it needs to be kept track of in the ledger, and we need to be able to understand what the balance is. So I don't know who this other entity is you keep talking about, but if NextEra gives us $5,000, it comes in through the treasurer, it gets deposited, I give you the receipt or the deposit slip, you make an entry in the ledger, and when we issue a check against that escrow account, you'll print a check, I will send a warrant and I'll send it out. And again, it should be recorded in the ledger. It's really not, I don't think it's that complex.
What Wayne's saying is there's an account that like NextEra would set up, and then we would draw when we have an expense from that account, and then it does come into the township, but the actual escrow account is not owned by us.
Correct.
I think these funds are in our bank account.
They go through the bank account, right?
Can't you just say it's a donation from a private entity that's basically,
Required by country.
I know, but just as a simplification of just drawn out explanation everybody's given.
If the money is external to the township, then that's fine. Nextera and the zoning administrator can keep track of that. My understanding, especially in Fire Station 1, Aaron's saying that's in our bank account. I don't know about Nextera.
No, there was $7,000 escrow account set up. And then that money we could draw on, or the township, if they needed to, would draw on that amount of money. And I think that the check that you got was what was left in that escrow account.
No, we're talking about two different things, Dave. The construction fund was handled by a title company.
Right.
And Maida gave them 3.5 million or whatever for them to manage. Then they ran out of money. And so Maida started paying the suppliers directly, because I guess it's very expensive to go through title companies. I don't know. All of a sudden, the title insurance company sent a check to us. I can't remember, $2,700 or $3,000, something, of leftover funds. So that wasn't really, had nothing to do with us. It was a title insurance, or I'm sorry, a title company that Maida dealt with to ensure that there were going to be funds to build the fire station. There was a separate escrow account, which would have been for site planning, engineering studies. And there seems to be confusion on that too. Was the environmental study part of the escrow account, and again, because we don't have, Paul Anderson's records are all over the place. So we don't really have, I've literally found 3 separate reports, 2 of which he sent to Aaron, that are conflicting, and then this is the third, the one that Wayne provided is now the third one, and none of them agree, so.
Okay,
Yeah, we have more digging,
right,
more digging.
okay. Move on to number 5, clerk budget for elections and deputy clerk for fire department.
So it was really it was more of a question. Number one, the clerk can have 1 deputy clerk, can have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. So Jay could surely be an assistant, or whatever you'd like him to be. My only question would be, I'm assuming if he's going to keep track of records for you, that'll come out of the clerk's budget.
Yeah, so this is actually a money saver to the township, and in multiple ways, and a time saver for the township. The clerk needs to have at least 1 deputy, but it can have many deputies. It's not required to have just 1, especially larger townships or larger municipalities have way more than 1 to be able to do all the different functions that a clerk's role does. So that is not necessarily true. These don't.
That's true. It's in the statute.
Okay, we can take a look at it with the MTA handbook. I'd love to show it to you later. Okay, but with that, all this basically does, let me explain each of these. So the clerk's budget for the deputy clerk so we deputized essentially Carl to be able to take ballot people who are applying to become put their names on the ballot, so that he could at the window be able to take and verify that they had filled out all of their stuff. So it opens up so that more residents had the opportunity, and they didn't have to wait for the clerk or the deputy clerk to necessarily be there. So that was something to be able to make sure that he would be able to receive and date those affidavits of identity. The second one with the clerk for the fire department. This basically, this is not new. This is how it's been in the township since we've had it from the beginning. Basically, it allows the fire department to keep their records over in the fire station that they had. If we did not have this, essentially they would have to copy every single report that was over there, and we'd have to house it also in this location as well. So that would be an extremely laborious for Jay Riggs to be able to do. It would require more filing and document recording, places to be able to have that. So this is a way to be able to say, when it comes to a FOIA request and that we need to get something, that I can go to him and say, hey, can you pull this record for me so that we can reach and meet those FOIA requests. So that's all that does. It's saving Jay time. He's not getting any money for that. He's very thankful that we kind of do this process here. The elections officer, that is literally Colleen Klein, who is amazing. Everyone in the county basically says we are very fortunate and lucky to have her. Her budget is allocated. It was in the budget that we had approved. It's been in the budget for the last several years because Colleen does a very good job at keeping our elections safe and secure. And from talking to people in the county, we've done audits. Our counties have done audits, and every single time our numbers match up exactly. So it's one of those things, I'm happy we have Colleen. And I would continue to keep her on that. So that's already budgeted. There's no new monies coming out for those things, but it is just like you with your deputy treasurer. It is our responsibility to let the board know who those people are and what they're doing. So.
Yeah, so you talked about a lot of things that I didn't bring up, but the only item I brought up was that you can have one deputy, and that was just a wording thing. I don't question the process. You can have many assistants. And then my only other question was, I wasn't sure if Carl was doing this under the guise of his office manager role, or if this was an additional role for him. Those were my questions, and neither of them got answered, so.
Okay.
Okay, Marshall Township amicus brief, committee for Marshall, not the mega site versus the city of Marshall.
Yeah, so the committee for Marshall, not the mega site, has filed with the Supreme Court, and as we did in the at the appellate court, Rob Thal suggested that Marshall Township prepare an amicus brief because, in fact, we have the same arguments that are appropriate to the township. So he's suggesting that, as we did at the last point in this lawsuit, that we file an amicus brief from the township. So I guess I would make a motion that we direct township attorneys to file an amicus brief in the committee for Marshall, not the mega site versus the city of Marshall.
I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported that we have the township attorneys doing a amicus brief. Yes, is there any discussion?
Do we know what the date is that they have to have it in by?
I don't. Yeah. The committee is already filed. I don't know what our timing is. I think the words I remember is there's no urgency. So I took that to mean that it didn't have to go in right away, but I don't know what the timing is.
Are we looking at a comparable cost to what they submitted to the Court
You
of
know,
Appeals?
I know last time he gave us the rough number of $10,000, as I recall.
It came in way under that. but-
Right. So I assume this hopefully wouldn't be all that complicated since he's already prepared one previously, but we didn't talk about that.
Would the amicus brief be similar, how similar or different compared to what he wrote last time, or?
Yeah, I assume it would be very, very similar because I think our argument is about the township's rights, right? It's not several of the other arguments that the committee for Marshall, not the mega site, makes on city processes or what the clerk does or doesn't do.
I guess the question is, do we feel it's worth it, beneficial to the township to continue this process?
Yeah, I only speak for myself and Wayne can speak, you know, we've been talking to the city, but I think it's important because it establishes, it puts forth what our belief of the current agreement is in terms of the role of the Joint Planning Commission, very specifically. So.
And I would say what's opened up dialogue with the city. I mean, I don't know if there was a lot of movement before we had an amicus brief, and all of a sudden it's like the city's been like, oh, we want to talk and have some conversation about it. So to me, it's like us doing it last time kind of gave us the ability to have something to bring in at the table to kind of move things in a different direction. So I do think it has been beneficial to the township. And I also think the arguments are strong for the township because it kind of gives township rights, essentially, of what is the role of the township? Are we just anything goes, or do we have a say in the process? And so to me, I think, at least from an argument standpoint, I don't think my position changes in the sense of like, oh, and I no longer think the township should have a say on something. No, I think the township should have a say. Both, it's meant to be an agreement. You know, we have the land, they have the utilities, but it should be mutually where it benefits both of our parties in a way that we agree on. And that hasn't quite been what's been. So part of me says, if it's a continuation of what we've been doing, I don't know, it makes sense that we continue, but I don't know, it's up for this board to decide that.
So we couldn't ever have any more cost than what them just filing the brief.
Right.
That's all the cost.
It's the amicus brief is basically a friend of the court. We're not part of the
I
suit.
just want to make sure that
Okay.
by filing this, that there won't be
Additional.
costs.
It's fair.
Yeah, I guess we're ready for roll call vote.
Okay, Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
Trustee Woods,
Yes,
Trustee Markounis,
Yes.
Supervisor Bossert,
No.
Trustee Wright, yes. Motion is approved.
Okay, Planning Commission vacancies.
basically, it's just a reminder that at this point in time, we have one position open, thanks to Trustee Markounis moving on from the Planning Commission. And also, we have an opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
So just a reminder only to those.
I will say, I talked to the different candidates about different, positions and stuff like that. I know that, so we were just like curious, what are people's interests in things? And so, obviously, like I talked to Nathaniel, or we reached out to him, and he said he's interested in like the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm trying to think, Liz, who else responded back. I know, you shaking your head no? That's the only one that kind of, yeah, but that was one. I did get, yeah, Jeff Alba sent me a text saying that, I just want to grab it real fast here, that Dr. Fitzmaurice may be someone that might be willing to serve on the planning commission, so he wanted me to mention that name as well. Yeah, so those are just a couple of at least for the planning commissions and the ZBA. Obviously, we don't know what else will be what will open up or not. But yeah.
Okay. Made his engagement letter with the township.
Well, there's no letter, but it was just the overall engagement between Maida and the township. Other than the 425 meetings you guys have with the city, Maida's and the township's engagement is pretty much nil. And that is sad. However, last fall, Jim Durian, Maida CEO, asked Wayne to take a tour of the Bear Creek property. And then about a month later, I also did a tour of the party upon his request. And that's okay. You know, I was glad to do it. I haven't looked at Bear Creek for ages, and it's a nice property. Has a lot of potential. It's just trying to determine what that potential is. Which leads me to that segue that Maida has initiated a Bear Creek board.
Correct.
And several stakeholders, Historical Society, city representatives, county representatives, and Wayne was asked to sit on that board as a representative of the township. My problem with that is Maida did not come and request presence from the township, representation from the township in person, by letter or anything. They're reaching out individually on past experience, and that is not the right way that this should be going. I think for Wayne to be a part of this, Maida needs to come and request representation from the township.
Yeah.
It's a good project.
100% agree.
It's a good project, but Maida needs to engage with us for this representation.
I will say that group has only met once. They have another meeting this week. And literally I just went because I'm just curious about what this is. It is literally, like, as was stated, they're setting up a nonprofit that Maida is starting, but will be eventually the goal is for Maida to be completely out of it. And it'll be its own entity that will be managing Bear Creek with a board of those, including those things. So I 100% agree. I only went because they asked, and I wanted to make sure there was some voice there from the township, but I am completely, trust me when I say this, would be happy to give it to somebody else other than myself, because I have enough to do outside of that. I will probably go to this meeting as well to kind of state those things, to say, like, we would prefer that the board should elect who is going to be representative on that board, but we'd also like Maida to kind of talk more about that. So I definitely will share that, but I went because it was like, hey, we're having this meeting, and I just didn't want the township voice not to be there, but completely happy to do that too.
So I think it's broader than just Bear Creek. I think Jim Durian had approached Johanna Johnson. So my feeling is they're kind of picking individuals, right? And I agree with you. I think that's a wrong way. I think we should push back. I'm pushing back, you know, he's offering to have some sit down with Wayne and I and SME engineers about their grandiose plan for the whole thing. And which I think he may have shared some documents with the planning commission, but they didn't come into the planning commission. I think they were invited to come in and present and declined. And, you know, I think, I agree with you. I think the dialogue should be with the board and, you know, open up the conversation. As far as I'm concerned, there's no plan over there until we resolve some things at the board level, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, they can make all the plans they want, but they may not come to fruition.
Okay, all right. Okay, I need a motion to approve the following agenda items, and you can request that it be voted on separately, any of them, so.
I would like to pull out items 2, 3, 5, and 6. Well, I guess 7. I mean, 7's kind of, it's going to take on its own process, I think. So that would leave 1 and 4, I guess.
Okay,
The consent agenda.
all right, well, we can, is there a second to that? Okay. Okay, so then we could go, 1, approval of the, we'll do 1 and 4,
Yeah.
and then we'll vote on that, so. Approval of the minutes from the 3/16/26 meeting and the 4/13/26 special meeting. And checks issued in the amount of $59,443.83, and that's attached.
And I'm just noting that Glenn had sent me some corrections to make on those, and I put them with the additional information. So I just want to note that the one that was in the original packet, we made those corrections that Mr. Treasurer Kowalski had suggested. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. So we'll do
Roll call.
approval.
Sorry.
Well, we need to have
So it was, the motion was,
the approval of the minutes.
yeah, so Glenn did the initial approval, and then it was Mick who seconded? Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, just want to make sure I got that right. Approval. Oh, consent. Agenda. 1 and 4. Okay. Are we doing roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Woods,
Yes.
Trustee Markounis,
Yes.
Supervisor Bossert,
Yes.
Clerk Wright, I'll vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski.
Yes.
Okay, those items have been approved.
All right, so we'll move on to number 2, the demolition of the cemetery building.
So I just requested this because it was something we tabled. I went out and looked at the building today. I presume maybe other board members have looked at it. It's in pretty sad shape. I don't know, there was a date on there that I couldn't quite read. It looked like it was quite a long time ago, like maybe early 1900s. So I don't know if it has any historical value. What I was going to suggest is this board, with the exception of you, Dave, maybe we don't really have the big picture of the cemetery. I walked the cemetery and you've got burials from, you know, the 1800s all the way to, you know, 2020-ish. And I know there's been some history that maybe records weren't the greatest and things, but it'd be nice, I think, for the board to take a look at, you know, what do we know about the cemetery other than the fact that it costs us quite a bit to keep up. We're not selling new lots, as I understand it. There are some existing deeds that will be filled. But rather than just talk about one building, maybe it could be a bigger picture of, you know, what do we know about the cemetery? I think there was some ground radar work that was done to identify, you know, where there may be people. And I don't know how that compares to what records either we have or got lost. I know nothing about it. But it does cost us, you know, quite a bit of money in upkeep every year. So if we can't sell lots, then we can't make up that money. So, so I guess I don't know how to make a motion. Would a reasonable motion be that we take a look at a package of information that we have on the cemetery? Doesn't have to be right away, but kind of look at it as a holistic picture, which would include the building itself if we can find out anything more about it. Jay Riggs did say did have a little bit of concern. He fills that water tank that people can use for flowers. And if the building goes away, he'd want to make sure that that tank was stable and didn't fall over on somebody. So
I just am noting also that at the last board meeting, Mick had asked if we could get a breakdown of what that proposal would be. And so that's been included as well. So I just, you know, we had asked that. We went out and we secured that information of what the breakdown in terms of the cost would be. So that's available as well. I will say, Glenn, I was able to find a MTA handbook on cemeteries that I could maybe lend you to look at as well, because it talks about there's like multiple ways that the township could fund them, and it also talks about should townships go into the cemetery business or not? Like, if people knew what they know today versus what, you know, would they have, you know, so it's not a super big MTA book, but I could definitely let you borrow that and I can put that in your box if you're interested.
I don't think the cemetery was ever meant to be a moneymaker.
No.
It was a service to the residents.
Right.
And it was at one time, and when Ron Quinn was on, we talked about expanding it because the land, well, it's Mick's father-in-law's land, and at that point, nothing was ever done. And there might be a lot or two in there, I don't know, but the building is really a safety concern, I guess, is one thing we need to look at.
look pretty solid. I mean, the roof has got some holes in it, so it's not water.
It's not gonna go anywhere. It's not
Right.
gonna fall over on anybody.
You know, typically cemeteries, you know, have trust funds that are basically built by the sale of plots and burials and the other things that people pay for. So in this case, I assume we have nothing.
We don't, because we don't know. I think in the old township hall, which I don't remember it being open, but there was a fire or something and things were lost in there. So
Yeah.
And then there was records kept in people's houses. so.
Right. Yeah, a lot of old cemeteries, the sexton, kept records at their house, and when they died, sometimes the records died with them.
Right.
And we have some of the records, it's not by any stretch complete. I mean, I've seen the records and like, I've kind of been given like, this is what we do if someone has a claim to a plot and what that kind of
They
goes
have to
through.
have a deed.
Yeah, they have to
Right.
have a deed and we can't, because of our not great records, we have to kind of accept those.
Right.
If something was to happen to someone out at the cemetery, does the township insurance cover that?
Well, I would hope we'd have liability insurance on that.
Would it have to be specific to cemetery grounds or just township properties, or you've probably never been asked that question
Nope,
before?
never have.
And that just leads back to the probable safety concern for that building.
Right.
People will be people. Somebody's gonna stick their head in there and just take a look around and
Well, it's locked. I mean, you can't open it. Right. I mean, you could.
somebody will find
If
a
you
way.
wanted to, if you wanted to, you could, but, and it's not, I don't think there's any danger that it's gonna crumble.
Yeah, it's a
But
fairly
but-
solid looking stone structure, but yeah.
And there's, like I said, there's a sandstone record of a date, but sandstone being sandstone, I don't, it looked to me like it was 1900 something, but I don't know.
So,
And there may not be any, we've talked about if there's no use for the building, then maybe it should go. My thought was, is there a way we could look at the cemetery in its totality, what we do know, and just, if nothing else, it's an information packet so that because we do incur quite a bit of cost annually, and so.
so do you want to table it or make a motion that something more is being done?
Well, I was just wondering, would there be support for a motion to pull cemetery information together in a board packet? Could be June, July, I don't know, whatever makes sense. It's not a high priority, I don't think. Unless we believe we want to act on the demolition of the building.
My only addition to this discussion is, we're talking demolition of a structure. I think what you're pointing to is more of an enhancement of what we can do. So it's
Well, I'm thinking,
a total picture of what's there, what can it be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
for example, I mean, I don't know even if there's anything inside of it, but, it could be that at the end of the day, and this is just strictly hypothetical, maybe we buy a lawnmower and we have somebody who cuts the lawn, to save us, some money. I have no idea. I don't know what's in there. I don't.
Heard Christina's going into sheep sometime soon.
Well, that's against the law. You can't have pets in cemeteries or something like that. There's a MCL law on that. I learned that.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Okay. Learning about
Sorry.
cemeteries. Yeah.
And if the board doesn't, want to do that, I'm interested enough that I can work with
Well, I think you
Wayne,
and
to find out more about it, just from my own interest and perspective, but,
I think you and I have both signed up for a webinar as well on cemeteries. So like we could definitely do some information gathering from that as well. But I agree, we're talking about a structure. The question is, I think you're right, a different thing than the structure itself. So the question is, do we tear it down? He broke down the quote of why it's the cost it is. Do we have questions on that? Or do we feel good about that?
And it's not being used for anything, it's just,
No, it's not being used for anything. It was where they kept
That's okay, and
Stuff in
that's
the-
no longer happening.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what's inside of it. But
Supervisor,
again, you could repair the roof. I mean, it could be a scout project for that matter, but
Is Joanna?
Joanna?
I apologize. This was one of the ones I had public comment on. Is it okay if I share it now? I know I'm out of order.
Yes, you're out of order, but we'll let you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think the cemetery needs some tender, loving care. It really is. There's some historic monuments that are there, obviously, and I looked at the building myself, and I really think it needs a whole comprehensive plan without costing the township a lot of money. It is an old building. I believe it's from 1906. Again, as Treasurer Kowalski mentioned, it's hard to say, but I hate to see a building like that just torn down when maybe there is something that we can do in a more historical preservation element. So I'm just asking that the board wait if we can, and I'm sure we can address liability, et cetera. But I'm hoping that we can preserve that building just for a little bit longer while we have more of a comprehensive plan for the cemetery. Thank you.
$19.09. Thank you. Is there a motion on the table already or no?
We haven't brought this one off the table yet.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll make the motion to table the demolition of the cemetery building.
I'll second that.
Maybe we could get, we could look at quotes to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, so maybe we'll take a look at what would have to be done. Maybe I can reach out to Historical Society. I don't know if there's like, if
Well, they would have some, and I don't know if Patty Parker, that family might have some real history.
and Scout, Eagle Scout projects quite often involve things like this and
you said Patty.
or making signs or whatever. So
Patty Parker might have some.
Okay, thank
They
you.
have a historical wing now.
Right.
Marshall District Library has a historical room now. Check with them.
Yeah. Good idea. Okay,
Okay,
roll call.
but we never,
It's to table it.
it's been tabled.
Oh, okay.
We never
We
took
can,
it
we
off
don't
the
have,
table. so
okay. We don't have to do a motion on that? Okay. Whew, that's nice.
Okay, and then we'll move on to number 3. Accept Supervisor Buzzard's resignation. I did.
So the only question I had was, is there a date, like tonight or the end of the month, or
Well,
what do you want to do, I guess?
I was, it wasn't accepted, and I wrote an email to Glenn, and I thought maybe I might stay on for a while here till we get through a few things, so.
Okay. So removing the supervisor's resignation for the time being?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to number 5. Decision on MTAC tree planting on the south side of the Township Hall.
So, again, I think Dave, you actually initiated this by requesting plantings between us and M96, I think, a while back.
Yeah, I thought we ought to have something like we have along the fire station out there.
So, I pursued that with this Greg Finella in 2 ways. Number one, hey, you destroyed part of our lawn with your equipment. I'm assuming you will repair it. He said yes. And I said, what about the plantings? Is there, this is all starting to happen. And he came back. Apparently they have some botanist or somebody who, landscape architect or something. And he came back with 15, a combination of 15 trees, some I've never even heard of, which is more like what the township or the fire station has. But the reason I brought it up is I'm wondering, do we really want deciduous trees or do we want,
Coniferous?
yeah, because to me, if it's a screen, something that's evergreen is gonna do a better job. He only listed one, a Serbian spruce, but he told Mick and I the other day, I think he had choices of 3 of them, different types or something.
Still choices that can be made.
But you know, this is it's gonna happen, and if we don't weigh in at it, it'll happen however it happens. But right now, he's on a course to only plant evergreens unless we tell him differently. But I think they were gonna present the plan. For some reason, they like to plant them in groups of 3 is what they told us. So I just brought it forward because it's really a board decision. It's not my decision. I just pursued it with them. And they are gonna repair the portion they damaged. Is gonna repair the portion they damaged. And hopefully cats will come out and finish the well electrical before everybody fixes it, the lawn. So I've made those contacts. So it's just right now, the direction without any need to do anything is there would be 15 evergreens planted on that side of the building as a screen.
Sounds good to me.
So we're good with 15 evergreens in clumps of 3, 5 clumps of 3. I think it looked great.
Right.
But
I just, it's good to have something to screen us from the,
I just started thinking about red maples and how I have to clean out my gutters every year, and it just didn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
with the way the wind blows, they're going to stack right up in front of firehouse doors.
do you think we need a motion on that, or are we all in agreement?
I mean, it's not a part of the consent agenda, so technically to approve it, we'd have to have, we could just do maybe a voice vote. That's an option as well.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do a voice vote.
All those in favor of the tree planting of evergreens along the township hall on the south side, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carried. Okay. Authorize Clerk Wright to use services of former clerk and deputy clerk.
Yeah, so essentially, we have, Jeff has been super helpful in being able to get us up to speed and trying to help us in transitioning. There's still a lot that we have to learn because there's just so much that happens. And to do this, it takes hours of his time. Christina was previously his deputy clerk, and she has also been willing to come in. And so I just want to make sure that we're okay with paying them their per diem of what they were before for their time and effort as we're still learning the ropes. My assumption is that over time, this would be less and less, but at least in the first little bit, there's a big learning curve to that. And so I would hope that the board would approve compensating both Clerk Alba, former Clerk Alba, and Christina Marcunas to
And that is the
continue.
motion.
And that is the motion, yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion from anyone? We'll do a roll call vote.
Yep. Okay. I'm gonna put it here. sorry, I had to finish writing it. Trustee Markounis,
Yes.
Supervisor Bossard,
Yes.
Clerk Wright, yes. Treasurer Kowalski,
Yes.
Trustee Woods.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Since we have a number 7, but we're not gonna do number 7, I had talked to Dwayne Sly about becoming my deputy supervisor. And he had agreed to that, and I should have done this at the beginning. I was gonna appoint Dwayne Sly as the deputy supervisor.
Okay.
Effective.
Immediately.
There we go. And that does not, just for the audience to know, when someone appoints a deputy, that there's no board vote on it. It's just them letting the board know who their deputy is going to be.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
It's not a lot. I think it has to do, I think there is a small amount, I have to look
Probably
again.
similar to the other deputies where
I
it's,
think it's like
I don't know.
$200 or $300 a month.
and then is there an hourly?
An hourly if they
No,
go
there's
over.
not.
There's not with that.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all,
Yes, it's
yes,
in the
all of
budget.
those things are already, in the budget approved. Yeah, it's a good question. Great question.
All right, is there any other items? New or old business?
I have one. We've had this for a while, but we have a bit of confusion, I think, with our legal staff. And we have different levels of competency, I think. So in talking with Rob Thal, his suggestion would be that all requests get funneled through him. And he would ensure that whatever opinions or direction comes back, that he's looked over. We've just had too many instances where I think Rob had to kind of overrule the other attorneys. In my opinion, again, I've brought this up before in the past. We had Roxanne Sieber write some opinions. There were some other opinions that just weren't written very well, and in at least one case was actually incorrect. So I think my experience with Rob is he's probably one of the senior members there, our senior partners, and is very thorough. So that, I guess I would make a motion that we funnel a request through Rob and that he'll funnel the responses back to us.
I'm just making sure that's a formal motion, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Press through.
Is there a second?
Can I hear the motion?
Yeah.
Terry, please.
I'm going to reread it and you can correct me if I'm wrong on what I wrote down. To funnel all legal requests through Rob Thal. Is that correct? Did I miss something?
No, that's perfect. That doesn't mean that someone else won't be doing the work. I think at the end of the day, he would just oversee it. They have some junior lawyers. They have Seth, of course, we know.
Do you want me to amend it to say funnel all legal requests first through Rob Thal? So if we add the word
Initially.
first
Initially?
or,
Sure.
okay.
Yes. The idea, I think, is just that he will be our attorney. He may lean on other people, but the expectation is what's going in and coming out will come through him. So he has a view into it. We just had this isn't that long ago where there was some opinions given and it turned out to be completely inaccurate, and Rob had to kind of step in and correct it. And it's, we can skip that step if he's the portal.
Okay,
Do we know if Rob's willing to do, sorry, just being new, is he willing to be the one to take them all?
Yeah, he's the one that made the suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay. I guess we'll do a roll call vote.
Well, has it been seconded at all?
No, it
Oh, it
hasn't.
hasn't been
We've
seconded.
discussed it.
Oh, you're right, we haven't discussed, yeah. I just assumed it had.
I will second it because my discussion question was just answered, so I'm good.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I will just say from my experience with Seth and Rob, I think, I don't think one is right or wrong in that, like, for example, in the last issue that we had come up, because I asked Seth, I'm like, hey, you said this, but then like you guys backtracked on it, like what happened? And literally what he basically said, he goes, so just to give some context, there was a question about the roundabout, whether we could add that to the agenda item at the special meeting or not. Seth said, no, you shouldn't bring that to the special agenda based off of, for example, what your thing says, that all members would need to be notified and be given those materials. Well, we had a vacancy on the board. So the question became, does a vacancy mean that all board members do or do not know? And so that was the factor. Seth went on the conservative side and said, to be on the safe side, you shouldn't add it to the agenda item because the potential, if someone were upset that that was added, would be risky, in that regard, and you could have litigation. Rob, on the other hand, came back and said, no, there's nobody in that position. It's worth the risk to be able to put that on the agenda. So it's just one of those things. It's like, both of these lawyers are good. The interpretation of the law, one tends to be a bit more conservative, whereas the other one's like, maybe that's a risk I'm willing to take. So that's just a perspective to consider if, like, are we okay with, not that Rob's right or wrong. I'm just saying he's willing to take a little bit more risk than Seth would. That's all. So that's
Yeah,
just
I would only say that there's been several instances where Seth's been wrong, and that was my perspective.
All right,
roll call. Are we ready for that? or no?
yes,
Okay. Supervisor Basser?
yes.
I will vote yes. Treasurer Kowalski?
Yes.
Trustee Woods?
Yes.
Trustee Markounis?
Yes.
Motion is approved. I also just had a question kind of. So over the weekend, Treasurer Kowalski, you sent 2 emails where you said you were resigning, which are technically official resignation because to do it, you have to send it to the full board and you have to provide a date. So I just was curious the status on your essential resignation that you.
I'm not resigning at this time.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted the clarity on that.
Okay, I think that's it.
We have public comment.
Yes, we'll open it up for public comment at this time.
Good evening, Kelly Isaac, City of Marshall. I took about 6 hours and listened to all the old township meetings to get up to date. Haven't been able to attend in person due to the complete chaos, which is the City of Marshall right now. 2 years ago, this board would have let Maida and the City of Marshall do pretty much anything there was no interest in protecting the property taxpayers. There was no interest in giving the citizens their voice. So I do thank you for filing that brief. For the new person, welcome. I'd like to always see females on the boards. And just a little bit of background, I've watched this considerably close play out for since the beginning. There's been some transitions in the township. I know that's hard to always get your job right and get trained. It took me, when I was in the corporate world, 6 to 12 months just to get my feet going. And I know there's a lot of things to learn. And I do appreciate all your work. I see the list of things that you do on the agendas, and I just want to say thank you for your time. And just remember that you are the residents' fail stop. And we voted for you to consider us. And not always good at getting to all the meetings. There's township meetings that overlap, city meetings that overlap, planning meetings, and now they have meetings on Saturdays. So I am quite certain that if this board hadn't changed in 2024, that you now would have a data center in the mega site. And I'm glad that didn't happen. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Regis Klingler, City Marshal resident. So I really don't have really a say in here, but I have a couple comments and suggestions from your meeting tonight. The first one, I'm not sure why the fire department has their own record system. Why isn't that a common system with the rest of the township? That there shouldn't be two separate systems that should be combined for efficiency. You'd save even more money that way. Just a suggestion. I do thank you for the amicus brief. I am on the committee for Marshall at the mega site. I think our what we want is both the same. I mean, we think the township should have a say in their own zoning. It's not, should be all one way. It is an agreement. So thank you for that support. On the evergreen trees for your side of a building, I would strongly suggest you have the architect, whoever, formally submit you a site plan, so you know what you're really getting and where it's going. I mean, you really can't make a decision without that, I don't think. On the treasurer and clerk situation, I think you are both well qualified, and I think you want to do a good job, both of you. I think you both have made mistakes in communication. I think you need to talk to each other more. You're both grown-ups, so you need to pardon each other and carry on. Wayne is a new clerk, and I think that the change in personnel there might have been part of the problem here is, the old clerk moving out and you moving in. I think that might be part of the problem, but I hope you can work that out. And even though if you put in more procedures and checks and balances, this situation could happen again. There could be an attack on a bank system. There could have a crash in their system. You could have a power outage. This situation isn't in your control. It really isn't in the bank's control. So it could happen again. So please be a little lenient. And if it does, please talk to each other so that you don't have this confrontation or whatever you want to call it. So I just wanted to say that. I think this whole thing could have been minimized with a lot more communication between the treasurer and the clerk. So you are a team. I think you're a good one, and I hope you will work together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh,
Bruce Miller, Marshall Township. I know you don't have to answer questions, but maybe you could nod a little or, driving up tonight, we were wondering why we don't have a new township hall with money flowing 360 degrees around here. And if not, if one's not planned, why not? Is there a new township hall in the works?
Not right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for the letter in December explaining what you're doing with our taxes and how to save money. That was very impressive. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, board member comments?
Dave, I just had a question. I think when you reversed your resignation, you mentioned an email, but I didn't catch all that.
Yeah, I sent an email to that, I can't remember how I put it. It wasn't rescinding, it was,
Reconsidering or something? I don't remember.
I can't remember what the exact words were.
Who did you send that to?
Well, I thought I sent it to everybody, but I guess I must not have sent it to you. I sent it to,
Yeah, so just,
I am withdrawing
With-
my resignation
right.
Withdrawing.
as supervisor.
just,
And Treasurer Kowalski was not listed as an address.
Okay, that's my fault. I'll take full responsibility for that.
so just in terms of comments, I mean, I agree with Regis, we need to work together. One of the things that, I would like to work on over the next month is making sure that, I'm approving all payments. And I know we have, we've probably built up some habits over the years of consumer power pulling money out of our accounts. I think payroll sounds like there was another issue, but I think we can resolve those. And I think, like I put in my note, I've been working on, our residents want more electronic ways to pay. And I think that could coincide with more electronic ways that we can make payments, so that we don't have to worry about $1 million check that goes to Marshall School District getting there without fraud. So that's my goal, is to work with the clerk over the next month to make sure that we have a method of me approving all payments that go outside of the township.
I will just mention that I have not, since I have been put as clerk, we have not changed anything in how it's been currently running. I've tried to maintain how it currently is to understand the system before we make changes. I've only been doing it for not even 3 weeks yet. So I would ask that if possible, we push that off just a little bit longer so that I can understand the role. I also pulled off the resolutions if needed on ACH payments. And if you're interested in looking at those and electronic payments, I know I've already given you the paycheck one that was there, but I did research it a little bit more because you had asked, like, what is the board policy and resolutions on it? So I have looked into that. I was trying to find those. I found those tonight in some of those, but those are board resolutions that were adopted, some of them quite some time ago. But yes, it's not that I'm not willing to change things. I just need some time to make sense of the position I'm in before I can understand how to change it. And so it's been very hard at the beginning to try to change things from the day before I started to now. So I just would ask if we could just, yes, we will do that. But just give me a little bit of time to make sense of the office first And then we can move forward on those things.
Yeah, so just do one clarification. The board, a board resolution has no effect on what I'm talking about. There are no payments that are to leave the township that the treasurer isn't the final approval on. It has nothing to do with the board. The board has no say-so in that particular area. So the contract for payroll, it's a contract of payroll, but how we pay them is something that we can work on so that we know what we're paying before we pay them. And, you know, whether it's a month or two, it's no big deal to me. The previous clerk had a tendency to completely forget the items, and I'm not going to let that happen again. So.
Like I said, I will give you those resolutions so you can look over them. You know,
I don't need the resolutions.
Okay.
There's only one rule. The treasurer approves all, is the final approval on all payments, whether they're electric or they're checks, and the board has there's no say-so from the board.
I hear that. And so there was, with this, I just want to let you know. So like, basically there's what they call an approved list of payments, of continuous payments to make sure that we aren't late on those payments. And so there was, back in the day, the treasurer created a list of, these are the entities that we have identified that, like, for example, consumers, to make sure that if we were to be late, we don't want consumers to like shut off the fire station. So we want the lights to keep on running in those things. So we're like, to make sure we don't have it, we have what we call an ACH payment, which basically goes through to be able to quickly pay those bills that we already know. There's still some checks because in the process, but yes, we can talk about, we can find ways to make sure that you're included in those processes. But like I said, can we just make these processes, I haven't changed anything. These are how Jeff were doing them beforehand. It's how you accepted them prior to Jeff. I'm just asking, can we just keep it just for a little bit so I can make sense of the system before we start implementing those changes? That is all I'm asking.
And no, actually, I didn't know about most of the payments. There was no communication. So any withdrawals, I didn't see those. Any ACH payments, I didn't see those. I never saw anything on the payroll. So that's going to change one way or another.
Okay, I have no more comments.
Anyone else?
I got a couple of things. I know where it is. Just for township residents, the Calhoun County recycling events begin this coming Monday. Household hazardous waste. It's Monday, the 27th of April at Bailey Park over in Battle Creek from noon to 5:30. According to their event schedule, that's the first of 3 household hazardous events, waste events that they're handling this year. I'm also in favor of granting leeway for the clerk to learn his job before any changes be made. The system that's in place worked with the previous clerk for a while. Definitely communication is key here, and we can make it work. My last comment was going to be a little bit longer, but I'll keep it short, and I'll have to read it. We are here representing the township residents to take care of the business of the township to the best of each of our abilities. It must be done civilly and respectfully as a team. And in my view, anything else is totally unacceptable. We have to work together. We need to communicate. and do it as a team. These guys are out here are the ones we're doing it for. I'm done.
I just want to follow on Mick. As a new board member, there were some emails received this Friday that were just concerned me as a new board member. I didn't feel like they were respectful to other board members. And regardless of our opinions for other people, we need to be focusing on the residents and doing our jobs, not making jabs at people. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
And on that, we're adjourned.
Just click the off, the end cough, the lead, James. The lead. There you go.